Would be nice. Yes, please. My apologies.
I drop out when this is over for the record.
The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed by President George H.W. Bush on July 26, 1990, a landmark law that prohibited discrimination against people with disabilities. In that same year, Boston held the first Disability Pride Day. Although Disability Pride Day is not nationally recognized, parades are held in a number of places nationwide. In 2015, New York Mayor Bill Blasio declared July Disability Pride Month in celebration of the ADA's 25th anniversary. Tonight, I have chosen to read a poem that was submitted by Jackie Cooper to a Disability Talks UK project that they did. 14 people submitted, millions of people submitted, but 14 people won best poems. And the poem I have chosen is called Lady in a Wheelchair, Invisible or What?
Yeah,
Look at me.
Thinking.
Let me find out who's not muted because I'm on here.
Because you're wearing all the hats like always.
Okay, I think we've got it now. Sorry about that. Lady in a Wheelchair, Invisible or What by Jackie Cooper. Look at me. What do you see? Ask me a question. Watch my reaction. You see, I live, I love, I cry. Speak to me. Go on, try. I cannot walk, but I like to talk. Don't natter over my head. Look down and speak to me instead. Are you afraid or shy? Too embarrassed to try? Can't you stop for a while? Speak to me and make me smile. How I wish I was strong and tall. Being down here, my world is small. My limbs are weak, but my heart is strong. Speak to me, it won't take long. Some time ago, I was well and smart. Then an illness tore my world apart. Now I see life through different eyes. Time for the truth, no more lies. So many things I cannot do. Speak to me. It could happen to you. Thank you.
Chandra, thank you so much for sharing that American moment. And thank you everyone for being here on this July night. I don't know about all of y'all, but the American moments that have been being shared in our meetings have been really powerful for me, and I am writing them down and I am finding them really powerful. So thank you very much, Chandra. That was really, really, really powerful. Thank you. And so for the record for our meeting, I now call the meeting to order as we have reached quorum. So that was our American moment presented by Chandra, by Jackie Cooper, Lady in a Wheelchair, Invisible or What? Thank you so much, Chandra.
Sure.
And thank you again, everybody, for joining us tonight. Before we start our official business, we have a guest speaker, and I'd like to give them the chance to speak first so they can head out if they'd like. And so I'd like to give the floor to candidate for CU Region at Large, Elliot Hood. Elliot, if you can, please come off mute and the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you so much. Can you all hear me? Awesome. It's so great to be with you all today, and thanks for giving me a few minutes to introduce myself and talk about this important race. So as Mischa mentioned, my name is Elliot Hood. I'm running for CU Region at Large. And if you've never heard of the CU Regency, you're not alone. One of my best friends, who I went to CU with, when I told him I was running for CU Region, he said, "Elliot, that's amazing. What the heck is that?" So the CU Regents are the governing board of the University of Colorado system. And the University of Colorado system is the third largest employer in Colorado, has a $5.9 billion annual budget, and is by far the largest higher ed institution in this state. The regents approve the budget, they hire and fire the president, they make ultimate tenure decisions, and they enact all policy and laws that apply across the university system. So a relatively low profile but very high impact job. And just to be clear, I'm running for an open seat. The incumbent, Leslie Smith, has decided not to run for re-election as regent, and she's running instead for the Colorado House, where she'll be great. So I am a very proud CU grad. I am a former public school teacher. I spent several years running development for a large education nonprofit, and I'm a lawyer. And for most of my legal career, I've been representing public school districts across the state of Colorado, from small districts on the Eastern Plains and the Western Slope to the largest metro area districts as well. And it has been such a pleasure and an honor for me to have started my professional career as a teacher, and now to be able to represent educators and schools across our great state. In addition to being a lawyer, I also have served on several public boards, including as vice chair of a state commission that dealt with disability access in Colorado, called the Disability Funding Committee. And I'm currently vice chair of a local board in the city of Boulder. So not only do I advise public boards as part of my job, I also have served in a leadership capacity on public boards. So I understand the enterprise of board governance. If I'm elected to the Regency, my big priorities are, number one, affordability and accessibility. When I was a teacher, I always preached the value of going to college and finishing your education. And my kids were mostly first-generation Americans whose parents had brought them to this country seeking a better life. Incredibly poor neighborhood, but those kids had such amazing dreams. And for them and for a lot of Americans, achieving those dreams means finishing your education, graduating from high school, and if you can and if you want to, going to college. And so I consider it a personal importance to make sure that college is accessible, is as affordable as possible, to make sure that all of our Colorado scholars can go to CU if they want to, and they can graduate, persist to graduation with as little debt as possible. My number two priority is protecting academic freedom. If you've been paying attention to what's happening in Florida and Texas and other conservative states, conservative politicians are attacking the foundation of higher ed by dictating what can be taught and trying to eradicate equity programming on their campuses solely to pursue a partisan political agenda. And while CU right now holds politicians at bay and says you're not in charge of curriculum decisions on our campuses, that could change if a Republican is elected to the seat, and I want to protect academic freedom at CU. Number three is promoting diversity, equity, access, and inclusion on our campuses. This is incredibly important to me. It's something that I have stood up and done repeatedly as a lawyer representing schools in Colorado. And I think it's really important to have a lawyer on the Board of Regents who understands constitutional law and who can help the university craft a new admissions policy in the wake of the recent Supreme Court decision that eradicated affirmative action, to make sure that we're continuing the important policy goal of attracting and admitting students of color, students from marginalized communities and underrepresented communities at CU, because our diversity goals are imperative and we cannot let the Supreme Court get in our way. Number four, I'm going to push the university to be bolder on reducing its carbon footprint and protecting the environment and conserving water, things that are imperative as we face the dual crises of climate change as well as the water crisis in the West. So this seat is incredibly important. This is a swing seat on the Board of Regents. It's currently a 5-4 advantage for Democrats. So it's very important that we keep this seat in a Democrat's hands. And I think that while we're nominating a Democrat, let's nominate somebody who's dedicated their professional life to public education, who believes in public education, someone who can win a statewide election in Colorado, and someone who can hit the ground running when they're elected as regent. And thank you so much for giving me the chance to introduce myself.
Thank you so much, Elliot, for being here. Sorry. Thank you so much, Elliot, for being here. And I didn't know if you wanted to take some time for questions, or if you wanted to drop your information in the chat so folks can follow up with you. How did you want to handle a couple more minutes?
Yeah, I'm happy to take some questions. And before I leave, I will definitely drop my info in the chat, and so people can reach out to me and ask additional questions.
Great. Do we have like one or two questions from folks on the floor? I saw Chauncey's hand first. Do we have it? So we'll take Chauncey first, and maybe one or two more after that if folks have them. Otherwise, Elliot, yep, I'm sure we'd love your information to follow up afterwards. Chauncey, the floor is yours.
Hi, Elliot. I have just one question. I go to UCCS actually, and I was just wondering, curiosity. I know that CU Boulder, talking about diversity, and CU Boulder specifically did a very good job at doing that in the sense of bringing someone like Deion Sanders, in the sense of bringing more culture, I guess, to CU Boulder that actually wasn't there in general at all. I mean, if you see, they're actually having HBCU Greek life on CU Boulder now, which actually wasn't a thing maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm just wondering, what are you looking at partner wise or just infrastructure wise or things like that that we might already have that can be retrofitted to bring more diversity to UCCS? Because I know CU Boulder gets lost within the CU system.
Yeah. First of all, you're absolutely right that the hiring of Coach Prime is a huge win for the university system because he is such a high profile Black leader in this country. And to have him at CU Boulder is awesome. And I wish I had a very concrete answer for you on what we can do at UCCS to make a big splash like that. But it will be a huge priority of mine to make sure that we're increasing diversity, not just at CU Boulder, but across our campuses. And I know that UCCS is primed to be our next great campus. It is centrally located in the state. It is an area of opportunity for the UC system as well as Colorado Springs. And let's tap into the talent that we have in Colorado Springs and in central and southern Colorado to make it more diverse and to make sure that the students there are thriving and that we can increase diversity on that campus as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jax, I see your hand next. Did I skip anybody in the queue, Chandra?
No, I don't see anyone else.
All right, Jax, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Elliot, for stopping by our El Paso County Dems meeting. Can I just clarify like the timeline of your race? You're asking for our support for the nomination, of course. And so just fact check me on when we're going to see your name on the ballot.
Yeah. So believe it or not, folks, this is top of the ticket next year on the ballot. So this is a 2024 election. There is no other statewide race on the ballot besides president. So you folks will have the distinct opportunity, hopefully, to vote for Joe Biden #1 and Elliot Hood #2 on your ballot in November of 2024. And the June 2024 primary is where you'll first see my name on the ballot, hopefully. And of course, working back from that during caucus is when we determine who gets on the ballot. So look for my name around that time, around caucus time. I'm looking for folks to advocate and caucus for me next March when you all get together and you in your precincts and you figure out who's going to be delegates to the state assembly. I'm going to be doing that myself because I'm a precinct organizer in Boulder. So I understand very well what you all do and appreciate the get out the vote efforts. But that's really kind of where the rubber meets the road for me. I'm trying to get out early so that I can introduce myself to folks across the state and make sure there's some name recognition with this race.
Super appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Do we have any other questions for Elliot before he heads out or stays? Please feel welcome to stay if you'd like. All right, I'm not seeing any. Chandra, are you seeing any?
None except for an ask that you put the agenda in chat. So that was the only thing that I saw in the chat.
Okay. I can try to figure out how to put the PDF in chat. Thank you so much, Elliot. Feel free to stay. And yes, thank you so much, Elliot. And we'd also love your information so we can get in touch with your team.
Yeah, and where's the chat feature on this? For some reason, I'm not seeing it.
Because you are a guest, I don't think you have access to the chat. So if you share with me what information you would like disseminated, I will happily share.
You bet. I'll just email that to you.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you for giving me the time.
Of course. All right, folks. Next up on our agenda was approval of the minutes. But Tracie, for the folks who are on a little bit early, Tracie, would you like to share what you shared, or would you like, yeah, go ahead, share.
Yeah, the minutes I have are super choppy. I needed access to the recording because I didn't know, how it was going to shake down last month. I didn't officially become secretary until the end of the meeting. And so I was taking down notes. Nothing is time stamped. I need to go through the recording of the minutes and make sure everything is accurate, which there's a good chunk of it that I know isn't, but it's.
Can I just chime in here?
Yep.
For some reason, the reason that is not accurate is for some reason the meeting is not accurate. I went through the timestamps and it has us meeting from 2 p.m. to 1 a.m. the next morning. The timestamp is all over the place. So just know that technology wise, we're trying to fix it. So when I did the minutes, I did minutes with no times at all. So I do have a complete set of minutes that is correct, but I don't know because I was doing some of them. So I've got that. I just don't have the times. So if you want to approve minutes without times, I'm good with that. I'm happy to share it.
Okay. We know we met between 6:30 and 9.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, we can do minutes. I'm okay with not having times tonight if we want to do minutes. I'm also okay with waiting and going over minutes next time. I'm okay with either. It's up to y'all. What do y'all think is best? And by y'all, I mean Chandra, Tracy.
Well, it would be, in my opinion, the best thing is that people get the minutes ahead of time and they have time to go over them. Now, if everybody's okay with getting 2 sets of minutes for the next meeting, that may be the best thing to do because we wouldn't want to, I mean, I wouldn't want to vote on minutes without looking through them and combing over them. And for everything that was shared last month, I mean, we never say anything in these meetings that isn't important. So I think it's due the attention that it deserves, in my opinion.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. We will postpone. We will share the minutes for both meetings before next meeting, and then we will vote on both of them next meeting.
Okay.
Awesome. Do we need to vote on that?
I was just going to ask, do we need a motion to move it to next month? I believe we do, to table it till next month.
Yes.
So I move that we table it till next month.
May I have a second?
This is Jax. I will second that.
Thank you. Is there any conversation on the matter? I don't see any. Chandra, do you see any?
I do not.
Okay. For efficiency, I will ask for unanimous consent, barring any objections. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. We will vote on both sets of minutes at the next meeting. Thank you, y'all. Okay, next up on the agenda, we will do the treasurer's report. Lynn Brown, can you please share the treasurer's report?
Okay, sorry, I just realized my mic wasn't on. Okay, this report, it covers the month of June. We started the month with $8,681 in the bank being our regular checking account. This is not including the new federal account. And then we ended the month, June 30th, with $15,179 in the bank. Altogether, the contributions during June amounted to $9,814. And down here, we see where those contributions came from. Act Blue, there was a slight increase. We have authorized.net. The Gidden bequest, that's the donation that was made as part of the estate of Kathleen Gidden. So this is the share that goes to the county this year. And then we have our first sales of tickets to the gala, and those are made in June. So altogether, $9,814. So we came in a little bit ahead than was originally predicted. For expenses, the expenses total $3,792. And I should mention, some expenses are right now being paid through the federal account. However, for purposes of keeping track of what we're spending, this includes payments that are made from our regular account and the federal account. And there's an adjustment. This is a new line. We show the ending balance, which shows what's in our regular account. And then this offset shows the amount that's either coming from, in this case, it's positive, so $476 came from the federal account, or some months it may be negative, where we have to reimburse to the federal account. Okay, so the total expenditures of the regular monthly expenses, we predicted $2,151. Okay, it came in less. We didn't have to pay the rent for the month of June because that was prepaid the previous month. However, we did have a big increase in expenses. So the amount is slightly lower than for the regular monthly expenses. $85 for chair expenses. The moving expenses came in about right, $1,058. Festival fees. There was a change in plans. We're partnering with the state party. We paid $600 as a part of our share to participate in the Fiestas Patrias festival that's going to be I believe it's in September. So that was $600, and then there was $39 for some additional expenses for us participating in the festivals. The installation charges a little bit higher than expected, $299 for both the phone and Wi-Fi in the office. We didn't make expenditures this month or last month for any office improvements, and your derelict treasurer did not get the courtesy gift sent yet. Okay, communications, these were new expenses that we hadn't planned. The transition to the new website, $268 to cover hosting and other charges. The insurance was paid a month in advance for the year, $747. And then we got a nice refund of our rent deposit from the old Bijou Street location. And there were $38 in miscellaneous other expenses. So altogether, our expenses came in lower than we'd originally predicted. So that's a savings of $756 for the month of June. But looking ahead, okay, here I'm going to have us look ahead to the next 2 months. Okay, income sources, ActBlue tends to be around $4,000. The gala tickets, so far in July, we've collected close to $900. So I rounded it up to 1,000. Hopefully we'll do more than that in August. And I should mention that I looked at what the
Close the window, Matt, in the front door. Sorry.
hello? Okay. Okay, I looked at the rate at which we sold our tickets and had other donations made for the gala last year. I don't know if last year is necessarily typical, but by the month before the gala, we had collected about 40% of what we would be collecting. So I think we need to start stepping up, getting our tickets and sponsorships sold as soon as possible. And last year, when the gala, we collected 60% of our donations in the final month, but we do want to be aim for having at least half our expected donations well before that. Okay, the expenses. Okay, I'm changing the expected monthly expenses. Several of our software subscriptions will no longer be either used or they will become yearly expenses instead of monthly expenses. So that reduces the expected amount every month to $1,996. We're expecting an open house party. I don't know if it'll be this month or August, but the current budget is $1,600 for that. Microsoft Teams is the big expenditure. This month we'll be paying $855 because of the large increase in the number of participants. That'll be the last time that we'll be paying a monthly expense for Microsoft Teams. And then probably in August, we'll receive the bill for an annual expense, and rough estimate, $4,800. I've moved the office improvements to August, 500. So starting with the balance at the end of June, 15,180. I expect that we'll have a slight increase at the end of July, but a large decrease at the end of August. And then just showing the revised estimate of monthly expenses. We have our rent, offsite storage, our payment for NGP van, our accounting expense that went up because it now includes the federal account. They made a deal with us. Instead of doubling it, it was just a $50 monthly increase, which was nice. And the other expenses, the phone and broadband are looking like they're going to be more than what was originally planned. It's more like $400. And the other expenses are the same as they've been for years. So the new monthly estimate, assuming that we get an offset from the federal account, $1,996. Okay. So that concludes the treasurer's report for the month of June. Are there any questions? Comments? Okay.
I see Judy Inglito's hand up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's not a question about what you presented, but just the process. I'm on the board for another organization, and we follow Robert's rules, and I kind of Googled this. We have been voting to approve the treasurer's report, and we don't need to do that. And I don't know if Matthew Schneider's here, he's our parliamentarian, or someone else wants to double check that, but I know in the organization I'm with, we had that discussion a couple years ago, and you don't need to approve. Like I said, I Googled it, and you don't have the body approve the report. It's the treasurer's report is just the treasurer's
It is what it is.
report.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that kind
So
of
if
makes
anyone
sense.
else wants to check that out, but that'll just save us having to keep going through and doing that. But someone else can double check that, or I don't know if there's something in our bylaws that says we or the group has to approve it or whatever. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I show Susie Sanchez next, and then we can discuss the other if you want.
Yeah, it was just a point of clarification. So the number that I see in greater giving isn't matching up the number that we just went over for gala tickets. So maybe that's something I should actually ask offline. So never mind.
Yeah, what was reported was what we collected during June. It doesn't include what we've collected for July.
Got it.
So
Okay.
far in July, it was $900 something.
Okay, cool. Because I was going to share my screen and then the number was going to pop up and I was like, maybe I
Yeah.
won't do that then.
Okay, yeah, and there've
Thank
been
you.
there may have been more purchases since I looked at it.
Yep.
So I don't know what to do. Do we vote on it? Do we not vote on it? I love the idea of not having to vote on it. But I don't know. Is that in our bylaws? Is Matthew here? John?
I was going to move that we just approve it and then check for the next meeting, double check, and then move on.
That sounds great.
That is my
Move to
motion.
Great. Do we need a second?
Second.
I'll second. Yeah.
Great. Let's move on then. Yeah.
Who was the second? Was that Michelle?
It was Michelle and Judy Ingolito. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, y'all. Okay, so next up on the agenda, we have the event manager's report, and that is going to be Susie Sanchez. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Susie. If I haven't had a chance to meet you, I'm your new event manager for the party. Really excited to be here. I have primarily been working on the gala with the gala committee, but will now be overseeing all of our events to include fairs and festivals and any sort of fundraising initiatives that we may start working on. So super pumped to be here. I'll try to keep it pretty brief. As it relates to the gala, we are moving along. If there is anyone who is interested in learning more or has, items that they'd like to donate for the silent auction, please feel free to reach out to me. A lot of what we're going to be doing in the next few weeks will be ramping up our social media marketing of the gala, as well as ramping up our outreach to sponsors and businesses in the Colorado Springs, El Paso County area to request donations for the silent auction. So that's the gala. On the open house. So thank you all for your patience with the open house. We had some things come up, so we really appreciate everyone's patience on this. With that being said, we do have a date set. It will be August 5th at 12 o'clock from 12 to 3. So we're really excited about it. We'll be in the office this weekend, setting up some of our photos and making it a little bit more homey for the open house. So really excited to see everybody there. The Facebook event will be updated. And then if you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me. My email is susie.sanchez@epcodemparty.org. And I see Jack's. Yeah, I'm so sorry this one seems urgent. We promised that weekend to emerge, actually. So I just want to check in on that because moving the location now would be an issue. What is, if you think emerge?
Good flag. The office space is so Emerge is it's a really great organization that trains democratic and progressive women to run for office. So Emerge has the space. This is part of why we're trying to get the calendar compiled. Good flag, Jax. Thank you for saying that. It is the entire weekend, right? It is the 4th through, give us the dates,
4, 5, and 6. Yes.
4, 5, and 6.
Awesome. All right. Well, then we will come back to you all with another date. I apologize. I did not realize that our space had been promised out.
And that is my apologies. I apologize. We're trying to get the calendars compiled, and we're trying to get all that together. So I apologize.
No worries. No worries. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, other than that, that's what I got for you all. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susie. All right, next up is, okay, so this next thing, I need everyone to take a deep breath. It's a little bit intense. I would say the next 2 things are a little bit more on the intense side for the agenda. I did not realize this was happening in our town. I shouldn't be surprised, but we have Rob here to kind of give us a bit of an overview on it. So take a deep breath. We're getting we have a great person to give us this overview, but we're going to get a couple takeaways from the revival that happened this weekend. Rob, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And are you seeing what I'm sharing? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so this is it's going to seem a little bit out of place at first until I get into the heart of what this was all about. Some of you may have heard about or noticed that there was a pretty large tent revival at Church for All Nations. It started on Sunday. It just concluded last night. It was over 4 days and nights, and it could seem kind of like innocent on the surface, but this is actually something, and these are 2 people who are part of major Christian nationalist movement in the United States. It's called the New Apostolic Reformation. Their goal is to basically institute theocracy either in an outright way or a de facto way. And so they were here in town, and a lot of people probably didn't realize exactly how political that these things get. And there were probably some very specific reasons related to some upcoming elections that they had decided to have this particular event in town. So I'm going to try to leave a lot of my emotions and opinions out of this and just play some audio and some video clips for you, and they can explain to you in their own words what they were doing here and what the goal was. First thing I'm gonna play you is a piece of a podcast clip with Mario Morello. He was one of the main speakers at the Fire and Glory event, and he is talking with the guy that's on the screen right now. His name is Chaim Goldman. Chaim Goldman is the one who started the Church Voters Guide, which is now managed out of the road at Chapel Hills. And we all know how influential that was, beginning with the city council elections in 2021, the school board elections in 2021, and it continues to be influential. Chaim is now working for Salem Media, which Salem Media is a Christian nationalist media organization. It's actually headquartered in Colorado Springs. He was interviewed Mario Morello a few days before the tent revival started.
What is it that you're doing this year, and tell us about the event itself? I'll remind people it's July 16th through the 19th, Sunday through Wednesday night at Church for All Nations North Campus in Colorado Springs, starting at 6:30. So what can you tell us about it, Mario?
Okay, I'll tell you very quickly that Plato said that the person who believes they should not be politically involved deserves to be punished by being ruled by people that are inferior. Well, there's been a lot of talk about how the pastor and the minister shouldn't be politically involved. And I, for many years, believed that till I realized that I was talking against drugs and no one ever accused me of being a pharmacist. So now that I mention the evil of politics, they assume I'm a politician. But during the day in Fire and Glory, three of the best speakers you'll ever hear, Bill Fetterman, Lance Wallnau, Floyd Brown of Western Journal, are going to give the case for how we turn the political spectrum back to Christian values and the conservative values that made this nation great. Well, my duty in the evening is to help people to find Christ and to be set free from addictions and physical disease by the mass and real power of God.
Well.
So he's kind of outlining how the structure of this event went. In the mornings, there was a 4-hour session that started at 10 a.m. that was all focused on activating the church politically and providing a lot of information for the participants on how to do so. The evenings were turned over to Mario Morello, which Mario Morello is a faith healer. He was the one who was intended to bring the signs and wonders and miracles and healing to inspire believers and to attract the non-believers to these types of things. So here is an example. This is Lance Wallnau now, who is talking in one of the morning sessions, and he is actually talking about Colorado specifically. And he's referring to a book that I would recommend that all of you read too, called The Blueprint. And I'll let him speak for himself.
God is building a house. Do you see what I'm trying to say? He's building a house for Colorado. He's building an ecclesia to go against the gates of hell in Colorado. But if you think what happened in Colorado was just spiritual, I know what happened with Ted Haggard. That was a big blow. Focus on the family. I don't know if it is what it used to be. All I can say is Colorado Springs was the epicenter at one time. It was like a spiritual nerve center of the body of Christ, and bam, something came in and whacked it. But then, if you read this book, The Blueprint, you'll see that there was 3 or 4 multimillionaires and rich people that commiserated together on how to create 501c3s, or actually there were 527s, that would be these fictitious news sites and these activist groups who were funded, and they tore down and took down every conservative that was in office, and overnight they had overwhelmed the system. They had worked, they put their money together and strategically created these organizations that, and the left always does this. They get these mom and apple pie names for their organizations. They targeted the House here with Alliance for Colorado Families, which is ironic because they're bringing in all the transgenders now. Alliance for Colorado Families, for the Senate, they have Forward Colorado, and then 2 field operations, the Coalition for a Better Colorado and the Alliance for a Better Colorado. It's like the mafia selling apple pie as far as I'm concerned. So what do you end up with? You got Christians don't know because we're not involved in politics. The conservatives in the Republican Party didn't know what hit them. You know why? Because it didn't come from the Democrats. You know what these guys figured out? It happened on our watch, and almost none of you know it. The Democrat Party wasn't cooperating with the radical Soros agenda. So they decided to create their own party and take over the Democrat Party. So now the Democrats that you hear that are radical Marxists, anti-Israel, pro-transgender, take down the family, nothing like Clinton, actually. But nothing like Kennedy, nothing like Mondale, nothing like those. What you have now is you have a totally different party running as the Democrat Party. They got taken over. It was brilliant, actually. While men slept. And so now we're up against 2 things. God's going to build a house spiritually because you have to rebuild. I have my whiteboard here. You have to rebuild the house in order to restore the walls and the gates of government and education. Does that make sense?
Okay, so that was what the morning sessions were like. It was a lot of that type of talk. So anybody who had been deceived into thinking this was some kind of a religious like church event is very, very wrong about that. This was political activism at work. There's I have another clip I want to show you in a minute that'll show you how many people that he was speaking to at the moment. But this big tent that they had set up outside Church for All Nations sat 5,000 people. I was there 2 of those evenings and got to witness all of this like firsthand. And it was fairly disturbing just with the amount of people that were being exposed to this rhetoric all at one time. They did more from an activation and almost like a get out the vote kind of perspective than we'd be able to do in 6 months in just one evening, a couple of evenings with this type of talk. So Mario Murillo is not, he's supposed to be focused on all of the signs and wonders and miracles and winning souls and that kind of thing. But he would deviate over into some of the political spectrum too. And I was actually sitting in the audience whenever he had this to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, this morning Lance Wallnau preached a very important sermon in which he discussed the evil of both the Canadian government and the American government, which is rightly so. Here is what I believe conservatism needs to do. It needs a wake-up call. You see, what we've done is we've called out the political error, but we are afraid to describe the evil at its root. The voting system in the United States has been corrupted not just by men, but by demons. Now, I need you to look at me and understand that. We're in a very similar posture as the Black Robe Regiment was with the Continental Army in the Revolution. There has to be a blending of gifts. 2 streams need to come together. Now, this afternoon when I was with Jesus, and he said to me, if you're not willing to serve this city, if you're not willing to be a part of what I'm already doing, if you don't analyze how they've prayed and how they've sacrificed, he said, I've made promises to churches in this city, and I'm going to keep every promise I've made to them. And he said, but if you don't leave something, God said 4 nights is not enough. It's not enough. He said, I'm going to give you 4 glorious nights, but it's not enough. It's got to be only the beginning of a new era in Colorado Springs. There can't be, I need some help right now. It can't just be a meeting. It's got to become a movement of the Holy Spirit.
You get to see like how many people were in there, and I'm sitting back there in the back, just toward the aisle or something like that, basically terrified about this point because just wondering what would happen because they knew that I was there. He and Lance talk about me in some of their other talk shows and that kind of thing because they know that I've been watching and calling them out, and I was just terrified like at that moment. But especially considering that mention of the Black Robe Regiment, that's only talking about violence. So Why am I
Rob-
bringing like all of this? Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We've got a point of order in the chat that I have to bring forward.
Sure.
Chandra, did you call me for a point of order?
I did call to Rob and Mischa that there was a point of order. I am assuming they will see your call of order at this point.
Okay.
Sorry, y'all. Sorry, y'all. My computer is having some sort of technical difficulties. Yes, Liz, we are recognizing your point of order.
Okay, so our Democratic Party executive meeting should be running our party. And this topic is more appropriate for a different type of a meeting than what it's being presented right here. I don't think this is appropriate to have for our regular executive meeting.
So as the chair, I get to set the agenda, and this is something that I set in the agenda because I think it's very important that we know that they are talking about politics. This is not the same Republican Party that we were dealing with last year. This is not the same Republican Party that we were dealing with before. As the chair, I set the agenda. This is the agenda that I've set.
Okay.
Is there, go ahead.
I just
Judy,
don't feel comfortable with this line of, I just don't like it. I mean.
So, and go ahead.
I mean, we have an executive meeting to do executive party work. This is more along the lines of like campaign planning and some other things. So these meetings are recorded, and when we put stuff like this out to open meetings, then certain groups know we're onto them. And I'd prefer not to give away our playbook to the Super Bowl through our executive meetings.
So I'm going to say 2 comments, and then we've got a couple of folks in the queue. The first comment is we've not gotten through the agenda to know what this agenda is about. Second comment is we've asked to go into exec a couple of times, and that's been denied by this group every time we've asked to go to exec. The third comment that I've got is where else do we have these kinds of conversations if not for this group to discuss strategy? So I'm open to conversation on this, but we haven't even given Rob the moment to go through his agenda item. So like, that's a good, that's a good flag, but we haven't even given him the opportunity to go through his agenda item.
Okay.
So we don't know what the agenda item is because he hasn't finished it.
Okay, I have your list as Judy Ingalito, Jax, myself, and Susie Sanchez.
Yeah, I would just suggest it would be helpful if the purpose of this would be stated up front. This is, Rob, this is why I'm sharing this with the executive committee. This is what we're going to do with it. I think rather than just saying, hey, we want you to know that this kind of stuff is going on. I would rather have a more clear purpose up front. That might help with that. That's all. Some old advice.
No, that's super helpful. No, Judy, that's super helpful. That is something that we can absolutely, if what you're saying is like the picture and like the goal of why we're presenting this is helpful at the front, that is something tangible that we can work with. That is super helpful. Thank you, Judy.
I have Jax next. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, Rob, to interrupt. I do find it interesting and I do find it relevant as like intelligence operations, right, for the party business. I would just hopefully provide additionally helpful feedback like Judy is that in confession, this type of guy talking, I easily tune out. And so, Rob, I would trust more like your top lines and what you have to say than watching these assholes. So thank you though for presenting the information. I do think it's important.
Okay, I was next, so I'm going to sneak in before Susie. It just lowers my hands as we were talking through the list. But my point is that we actually put school boards and LGBTQ on our executive committee so that that became our business. If we don't start getting in the business of everything being political, then we don't stand a chance. And I firmly believe that we need to stand here and understand what is going on around us, because y'all, my brother was there. Like, people are here. We have to be talking about this. And so because we have an agenda person that is supposed to do the reporting on what's happening at our school boards, these are the people trying to take over our school boards. It is absolutely relevant to this meeting, in my opinion.
And I was just going to echo the same thing. My understanding as an executive board is that we're strategic planners and we need to understand what is happening in our community. And part of that is what this is. I grew up in a Southern Baptist family where we went to revivals like this, and people are being, I mean, everything's being politicized. So I very much agree with Chandra and others that this is the appropriate platform for this type of topic.
And so, Liz, to your point, when we've brought this up about going into exec, folks have been very wary about us moving. So we've brought up moving to exec before, and that has been something that has been like, this group has been very adamant that we don't do that as EPCO Dems. So if that is still the way that this group feels, then I'm not sure where is the appropriate place to have these conversations. We've asked this group largely, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, we've asked this group largely about moving to exec, and this group has been pretty opposed to that, correct? Am I wrong? We've asked this group that, right?
It has been asked, yes.
Okay, I thought we had. So we asked this group a couple times about moving to exec, and we have been shut down in that. So my thought in this is this tent revival, Rob, how many attendees was it between the 2 days?
It would have been somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 per night.
So this wasn't like it wasn't a quiet event. So I don't think that us discussing this in our meeting is anything that people would say like, oh, this is jarring that they discussed it. 10,000 people attended. Us discussing it makes sense. And so I think what Rob is going to do now is go back to what he was doing in his agenda. And Rob, if you can just hit the highlight of why we are talking about this, I think folks are picking up kind of where we were headed with this, but if you can hit the highlight of why this is on the agenda, that'd be great. And Judy, I think that's super helpful. And Liz, if you can come back off mute and let us know if that would be helpful. If we're talking about spicy topics like this, if it would be helpful to say the reason this spicy topic is on the agenda is because our goal is to XYZ. Because Judy, I think that's a really valid point. If we're bringing something spicy up, this is why we're doing it.
Yes, I would like to know that. Otherwise, it just comes across like, we're giving away our playbook to the Super Bowl. I just think certain things should be kept. Like, can we not record this portion of this?
I don't think I think the option is either to move to exec and then the recording can stop, or the meeting is recorded. I don't think there is an in-between option.
Okay.
Is Matthew on?
That would be correct, Mischa.
No, Matthew's in Connecticut. He's on work.
He is not on, but that is what he told us last time.
Okay. So, and to be perfectly fair, Liz, I would never put anything on our agenda that I feel like is not public knowledge. And so to this point, we're not talking about, this was purely informational. This is in case you missed it, because like what Jack said, I would never have known about this. When Rob sent me the blurb on this, I was jarred. I was absolutely jarred. And then when Chandra said there was a family member there, and like Jax and I were having a conversation, this was jarring to me. This didn't happen in my community, like in where I grew up, right? I'm from El Paso County and this happened. So you know what I'm saying? So all this to say, this is not to diminish what anybody is feeling here. This is informational. This is not our playbook. Is that fair?
Thank you for explaining it. I just desperately needed that. I was like, where are we going with this?
Just informational. Of course. So if I can give the floor back over to Rob, Rob, if you can start with the highline of like just kind of the informational purpose of this, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so top line, just about to like talk about where all of their outside volunteers are coming from and the specific focus on school board elections in this area, which is one of the specific reasons why they are doing this. They are also, it appears as if they are starting to recreate a Christian nationalist version of Vote Builder. That not to even, and then my other intent with like doing this is to get us more comfortable with talking about Christian nationalism, because this is a very, very real threat. And this is a very typical reaction anytime this type of thing is brought up in a public forum. It makes people uncomfortable to start talking about specific religions in this way, and we need to get over it. There's the reasons. Should I continue, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay, so that was all of the context of the types of things that were being said, the messages that were being used. That messaging is also very common within that particular group of people. Okay, so the significant thing here is that there were seven church congregations that canceled their Sunday morning services on the first Sunday morning, and they all came under the tent instead. That's all the campuses for Church for All Nations, all the campuses for Radiant, the Road to Chapel Hills, and Charis Christian Center. All of those congregations came together for their particular services. It's also interesting too that they had about 1,100 volunteers, and a lot of those were brought in from outside through this organization called Inner City Action, which is out of Stockton, California. They brought in outside volunteers for doing canvassing and everything else. And some of the speakers mentioned that they would be coming back sometime in the summer, which obviously would be right before the school board elections, to do various types of walking around the city and that kind of thing. And I can't imagine they're not going to be doing canvassing at the same time. But also maybe more interesting was they had a vendor booth set up. So there were vendors, they're handing out literature and that kind of thing. There was an organization called Take Back D20. They're the ones who are responsible for d20books.com, which is a list of all the books they're trying to ban in Academy District 20. At that booth, they were passing out positive literature, the standard literature for Derek Wilburn and Amy Shandy, who are the two candidates that have been endorsed by Advocates for D20 Kids, Moms for Liberty, and the Church for All Nations Culture Impact Team. They also had negative literature, which honestly was really, it's bordering on defamation, from Will Timby and Heather Cloninger, who are two incumbents that are up for re-election at the in D20 school board. Also upcoming. So there were so many of the sessions in the morning that were focused on public education. There was so much literature that was out there about public education, taking it over the usual propaganda. And there were at least 4,000 to 5,000 people in two different sessions every day for 4 days that were continuously exposed to this. It was the fact that Colorado Springs is probably a very favorable donation revenue generating thing for them, plus the proximity to the school board elections, is the only reasons, because all this was happening in the heart of Academy District 20. They also do have their eyes on D11 and D49 and some of the other school board elections around here either. So one of the main takeaways from this is that as we're going into the school board elections in November, we are going to be facing a very, very large number of outside volunteers who are going to be assisting with all of this. They're setting up for that type of activity moving into the school board elections. Just for the sake of time, I won't go into some of the rest of this stuff, but all of these things are all interconnected, and they all are leading to Charis Bible College and Andrew Womack. Very, very direct connections between the different people that are involved in this, including the two candidates in D20 that are likely going to be the primary public or anti-public education opposition in Academy District 20. It was a very, very striking event. It's the first time I'd had a chance to attend an event like this in person, and I left like very, very disturbed. I shared some of that, what I was learning with Mischa, and she asked me to talk about it tonight. And Madam Chair, if you don't have any questions or if anybody else that doesn't have any questions, then that is all that I had.
So like I said at the beginning of this, I know that was heavy, and I know that it took us a minute to get there for why this was important. But does anybody have a question for Rob about anything that was said? If we need to ask questions privately, feel free to email. But does anybody have questions for Rob about what he saw about this information? I saw Judith hand first. If you want to join the stack, Chandra, can you keep track of that for me?
Sure will.
Thank you. Judith, the floor is yours.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for sharing this. It's very scary information. Is there a possibility that you can share the, I'm not sure what to call it, the nightmare chart on the screen at this point?
Yes,
with
I
us?
can.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
I have Christian Seal next.
I appreciate you, Rob. I have a very simple question. What are your thoughts on the legalities of them using these church events to campaign?
It probably is against the law. Unfortunately, the IRS they don't generally take a lot of action against churches. Although I do have some evidence that with the right type of evidence, submitted in a nonprofit complaint to the IRS, that it can do some good. But in those cases, I mean, it was a Fervent Church specifically that I know had their nonprofit status removed because of their heavy connections and involvement with the local county GOP. It doesn't really seem to make that much of a difference. They seem to continue to do whatever it is they want to do. And the only penalties are going to be civil, and they're really fast and loose with nonprofit compliance and from a tax perspective anyway. So it doesn't really do a lot of good.
Next question is from Paul.
Where are these events posted at? These public for everybody to see? Because I've never seen none of these meetings anywhere.
I mean, you got to kind of be in the network to really know about them. It's another one of the reasons why it's important to continue talking about these things, because I mean, this is not even the first time that Mario Murillo and Lance Wallner have come to town, and it's important to realize, which one of the churches are connected to. They're much more politically driven than they are spiritual, and our proximity to Charis and the Truth and Liberty Coalition just makes it that much more pronounced. But you kind of have to know where to look.
Next question comes from Melissa.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, it wasn't as much of a question as it was a comment in relevance to all this. As I've been researching this for a very long time, in respect to Colorado Springs, it is probably the singularly biggest threat that we have right now, just in the mass numbers and their continued relevance in Colorado Springs. There's over 538 different Christian organizations in Colorado Springs. It was considered a hub for a very long time, and as probably I just recently learned, John Jarrell did a paper related to this. At one point, we were noted as the hate state, and what they were able to accomplish back then and us fighting back is literally the most prominent thing that we can do at this time because of just their sheer numbers. And as Rob very respectfully said, to cancel church services at 3 of the major institutions and have everybody attending at that event where they had large areas where they were distributing basically political fodder, just goes to show the massive amount of people that they'd be reaching in Colorado Springs. And I just wanted to put emphasis on that to show that if there was a PAC or a group out there that was putting out people to walk the streets to do door knocking, we would be, want to be aware. We need to be aware of this. This is basically just a giant PAC. under the guise of a nonprofit. And I mean, literally, the churches have their own entities of politicking with within the church. For example, Church of All Nation has their political policy team. The Road has the cultural impact team, or vice versa. I can't remember. They have literal people, lawyers, working with them to be able to continue to do their politicking. So I just wanted to stress that. That was all.
Tracie, you're the only hand I see up.
All I'm going to offer is, I think just about everybody here knows my day job is working at the Indy and the Colorado Springs Business Journal. And if anybody's following it closely, you're still seeing a lot of content from Pam Zubik and Nick Raven for a reason. We are working to get back to a level where we can report this stuff. So just from a perspective that that can speak to this voice in the community that isn't quite as loud as it used to be, I do think this is a worthwhile thing to sit and listen to, because another voice in the community that could be talking about it isn't able to right now. So just to remind folks of that. And so I hear you, Liz, and I certainly understand, but I really believe wholeheartedly it is a worthwhile thing to give our attention to.
And before we move on to our next agenda item, I just want to say something that is incredibly important to me. I really want to strengthen our bonds in the religious community. And Rob and I have had this conversation. Religion doesn't belong to any political party. And as someone who grew up in the church, we don't win races in El Paso County without our religious counterparts as well. And there are some fantastic churches that are doing really important work and that are on our side in things, or that are on nobody's side, and that would be great allies in this. So this is never to offend anybody. And Liz, to your point, I understand recordings. There is nothing that I would bring up that I don't think is already widely spread and that folks understand that we are talking about. They're talking about it too. Lance Wallnow was on podcast this week. Rob has been sending me stuff all week that is in my yuck box. But like, I'm getting it all. So like, all of that to be said, they're not hiding it. And so I think we have an obligation to not be hiding it either. Right. And if they're talking about it, we should be talking about it too. And if for nothing else, for them to know, like, we're watching and like, we are educated enough to know what you're doing. And so thanks everybody for the thoughtful conversation on this. I'm not seeing any more hands. Chandra, are you seeing hands?
I see no hands.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, then we will move on. John Jarrell, you are up next with our redistricting update.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to assume that you know the basics of what's going on. The county's redistricting and the commissioners are the ones doing that redistricting. I just want to give an update on what's happened. So the county party has put a lot of coordinated, calculated pressure on the Board of County Commissioners at all 5 meetings, and through turning in our own maps through the citizen input process and getting people to report online. We've had multiple people that are in this meeting right now quoted in the Gazette and other media. Chauncey was quoted in the Gazette. I was quoted. Jax was. Woody, another one of our executive committee members who couldn't make it today, was quoted. And a lot of people that are here have been at these meetings and have helped put on this pressure. So we've really done our due diligence here and done a good job. But I want to update where we stand. One thing to say is that they are largely yielding on the argument that the Southeast needs to be united into one region. It's currently divided up. So the Southeast of Colorado Springs, I mean, not the county. People in the county have been confused at what we were saying at one point. But the Southeast Colorado Springs, they are largely yielding on that because of the Voting Rights Act. And they haven't united all of it yet in any of their proposed maps. So we're not done. There is work to do this weekend, in part because The final maps that can be turned in by citizens is going to be Monday. And so we're looking at that this weekend. We're also trying to coordinate citizen comment from certain people who will be disenfranchised if they don't unite all of the Southeast, and get those comments in before the next meeting on the 27th. If any of that sounds like something you'd be interested in helping with, reach out to me. I don't expect you to. Also know that we have a court date that is now on the books. It's scheduled for Monday for a KORA request that was denied over election planning materials. And so this is still going, even though the 5 meetings are over. The Democratic Party is still active in supporting some of these measures. Are not our own, but we are active in supporting them. And we will look forward to continuing to work this through the rest of the process, which ends August 15th, which means by the next meeting, we'll be able to report what the county commissioners voted on. I suspect that I might not be saying that the process is over, though, by that point, but we'll have to see. All right. Thank you, everyone. That is my report.
I have Zuri's hand up.
Hi, one thing that John didn't mention is that they're gerrymandering District 3, so they're making it incredibly unwinnable by putting Monument into District 3, which as a District 3 resident, we have very specific needs, and it pisses me off, frankly, to have our needs completely ignored by them. So if you can, please make public comment regarding District 3 and taking Monument out of District 3. And making sure that the West Side is competitive, because we have a very unique character, and it's very important that we are able to be represented, because we have not had any representation for decades. And if you need any help, I'll put my email in you can email me, you can call me. This just pisses me off to no end. And if you have made comments, please just put them online, just so that they're there, just so that Lois Landgraf, who they rejected a Democratic map, like not a Democratic map, but like a favorable, fair map for BS reasons. And they took into consideration a map that completely gerrymandered all 5 counties to be unwinnable. So I think we don't want to pretend that they're coming at this from a fair place.
I have Mike McGay up next.
Yeah, first of all, I've been watching this. I've been out of town and traveling a lot, but I just want to say to John, Zuri, Mischa, everybody that has been involved in this, you guys are doing an incredible job and putting pressure on these folks. Like they don't know what is going on, because in the past it was a couple of meetings with the county commissioners talking to each other, just like they do in the public meetings that we're seeing this go around, right? They feed off of each other's prejudices, off of protecting each other's butts, and et cetera. And this is throwing a monkey wrench into their mix. A couple of other comments, though. I mean, when you talk about gerrymandering, there's packing and cracking, right? And the Southeast has been cracked for 20, 30, 40 years, where that population's been split up. I think we've gotten it to the point where it will be whole, and there will be a winnable district there. But I think if they're smart, which I don't think they're stupid, I think they're very smart in a lot of ways, they're looking at packing. So they'll pack a district like Southeast and whatever precincts those are and what the boundaries are, and then they'll put as many Democratic voters into that precinct, and then that frees up 4 precincts, which will be very difficult to win. And you're seeing that in the Monument Palmer Lake inclusion into District 3. So that's, I think, the issue we got to fight. One other thing for all of you that have not been able to testify, and I testified at the initial meeting when they're forming the commission, but I haven't been able to do anything more than that for various reasons. I think it's really important that you make a written comment and get that on the record, because whatever happens here, I think, I may be wrong, they will come up with a map that makes District 3 unwinnable. And we will need to do something to fight that. And if there's testimony up front, and testimony ends as 24th or 25th, I believe, if there's testimony on the record from the more people we can get, that will strengthen any legal case that we might have moving forward. So I just say, first of all, everybody's doing a great job. This is really cool to watch, but I think we got work to do. And I think everybody that's on the executive committee should sign up to make your written comment or show up in person if you can testify. But even if you show up to testify, make sure you make a written comment as well, because that's the written record. If we have to go to court, if this gets to court, that's what the court's going to look at. And I'll shut up. Any comments, John, or anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say thanks for the shout out to everyone asking people to fill out comment. I would say if you're interested in doing that, just if you want, run your comments by me or Zuri. I know Zuri put their email in the chat just to make sure that we're on the same page and keeping comments focused. I think there have been a couple of examples where people have put in comments that weren't exactly aligned with our goals. But just something to think about. I mean, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and do that. I do want to say, though, to your point, I don't want to talk about this too much, but to your point about them packing the Southeast, they definitely have not done that yet. So far, they haven't even united all of the minority majority precincts into one. So perhaps if they yield on that point, which we are going to force them to do either through the courts or through this process, like that's getting done. Anyway, it may end up a situation where they yield on that and then go ahead and pack that district. But I mean, as it stands now, they could easily draw it. So it still slightly favors Republicans, even if they unite all of the Southeast. So this is not like an unfair request that we have. It's just saying give the Southeast a chance to have its voice heard. So this really isn't like a ask to hand the Democrats a seat like some people have been confused about on the Republican side. But yeah, I think if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I mean, we're dealing with this all day, all the time. I'll be working on it Monday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I have Monday off work. So reach out to me over the weekend. And if you are interested in getting comments in, please do it. Even if you just want to talk to me and say, what should I say? We do need to get those comments in. So thanks for pitching that, Zuri and Mike.
I don't see any other comments. Chandra, do you see any comments?
I do not.
All right, next on the agenda, and yes, just to echo the statements that were already said, everybody who's been contributing to redistricting has been killing it. Public comment, really holding folks accountable. I've been blowing up the chat, trying to throw glitter at everybody. Y'all have been killing it, so keep holding them accountable. It's been really great. So yes, next up on the agenda is office closure update. Rob, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I will. This is just a really brief topic because we know that like everyone is anxious to discover when the office is going to be reopened. We heard a lot of that last night. We did have a special meeting with it was most of the regular office volunteers, and me and Mischa, Susie, there were several of us there, and it was basically to start ironing out some of the details that would allow us to confidently reopen the office from a coming to consensus and understanding about roles and responsibilities to the security of the office. We did make some really good progress last night. At least I think so. Mischa, Madam Chair, I think that you share the same view there. We made good progress there, and I would imagine that we'll be in a good spot to be able to have a coherent plan for reopening the office. I would say within the next days to weeks. That is all I had.
Agreed, and thank you. Any questions or comments on that? I see Tracie.
Yeah, is there a plan for how that information will be disseminated?
We will likely share with Executive Council this group first, because we'd like to do a soft open first for the office leads, give them like a week or so to kind of get their bearings, get in there, do what they need to do first, and then disseminate to like the blast, on all of our socials, and then kind of make it more known. But we really want to give them a soft open first. and they are eager to get in there. So we are super excited to make that happen.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I see no other hands.
Okay, awesome. Rob, was that the end of your report?
Yeah, I think that was the major points.
Oh, I think I see a hand. Michelle, did you have a question or statement?
Yeah, what happened to our other volunteers that we had at the other site? Why is there some confusion about them transferring or transitioning, or what's going on in that case?
There is not any confusion. They are, for the most part, transferring over. We are trying to make the days line up. There are a couple folks who are mostly remote, and they had been remote at the other office. And there are a couple folks who were leads on site who are no longer leads. So we are just trying to make the days line up to make sense for, I'm going to get this wrong, for leads and I don't want to say normal volunteers, that's not right. For leads and office volunteers. There is normally a lead and a volunteer in the office. And so we are just trying to make the days line up so there is a lead and a volunteer for every day.
So some people didn't necessarily want to continue, and then we have some new people. Is that kind of it?
Yep, and we had some folks who we thought were in a better spot to take on the lead space, and they aren't quite ready, and now we're in a new space. So we're just trying to make sure all of the cards line up and everybody is feeling their best way getting into our new space.
Has that been the holdup of not opening the office, getting this straightened out?
It was that, and also summer is our slowest time of year. And knowing that we're gearing up for elections, we wanted to give everybody a break. The move was really hard. If, as everybody has moved in their life, moving the office was just as hard, if not a little more difficult, because there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. We wanted to give folks a much needed break and some much needed downtime, and summer felt like the right time to do that before we had elections. So we wanted to add it just felt like the right time to do it, and we had the ability to.
Thank you.
Yep. Does that answer all of your questions, ma'am?
Pretty much. I just hadn't heard anything about it, about why we needed to work so much with our volunteers to have them ready to work in the new place. So I just was inquiring about that.
Great questions. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I don't see any. Okay. Next up is going to be a caucus and assembly update from Chandra. Chandra, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of the things that we are doing this year is trying to work with our chairs so that everybody in your district has some knowledge of what's going on with both the meetings and the credentials process, because so many times we're running those meetings and it's not your meeting, and we are going to start giving that to you with less help from us at the long run. So I have for you a document that I'm going to send in chat. As I send this, I'm going to tell you what to do with it because it's going to be a little weird. Please click on the 3 buttons that are beside that and download that if you are the chair of one of our districts. So House district chairs, Senate district chairs, and county commissioner district chairs. If you will download that for me, I will also send it to you via email so that you hopefully get a copy one way or the other. And then if you will go to your teams, your executive boards, and fill it out for your group and pick one of the days that we've scheduled for training. We will be doing training, and it's a lot of training options, you guys. We did as good as we could to make sure that we gave enough time for everybody to get seen. This is going to be our training schedule. It will be Tuesday, September 12th, Wednesday, September 13th, Thursday, September 14th and Friday, September 15th, and we will do it twice on each of those days. We need to have our district chair, our secretary, our vice chair. I know that a couple of districts don't have some of those positions. Please fill it out with as many people as you have positions for. And we are going to try to work through the process of showing you how to use Teams well enough to run your meeting. And we will have a credential or tech person there with you, but we'd like to give you back your meetings. Any questions on that portion? I know it was a lot. Sorry. I guess I'll turn on the camera so you can see me for a minute. The training that we will do will be really comprehensive. We will make sure you guys don't feel lost. That is something that we're really try hard at, is making sure you guys do that. So if you'll download that document with the 3 dots, and that is all of the assembly and convention that I have for right now, because as you heard, see thing, our top candidate for this year. And so depending on whether or not anyone runs against will be the determiner on whether or not that's what we vote on. So we are looking at other possibilities. We're looking at a possible survey. So we will get back to you in months to come about that process. So those were the 2 updates I had. I see a question, hold on. John.
Yeah, thanks, Chandra. I know I've owed you a call to get updated, so I'll fill this out. 2 questions. Have you heard anything about what the state is planning for platform and what they may expect, for the counties to do to support, for the, you remember what they did last year? Have you heard anything about about the platform and what they're going to ask the counties to do?
I have not, and state usually is behind this. So we have a plan already in place for our platform, and we will be going over that next Tuesday at the platform meeting. For anybody that's on platform, PTO, anyone that's on the permanent org with me, please come to that meeting, because the permanent org is meeting next Tuesday, and we will be doing the discussion of how that will work. But we have kind of a plan for caucus, so that's, for taking in platform.
So at least great. It's good to hear it's on the radar. That's good.
Yeah,
if I could make another question, if I could just get one
Absolutely.
other point, just to also put on the radar. I don't mean to add it, that when the county redraws these district boundaries for the county commission districts, that may trigger us to do a mini reorg if we have any chairs that are, how we did that last year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we know that.
just to put that on your radar. Yeah, just to put that on your radar. Okay, thanks very
Nothing
much.
like a lot of little things to
Yeah, if it's not complicated enough already.
go on before there. Yeah, yeah. Christian, I
Okay,
see your
thank
hand.
you.
What time is that meeting next Tuesday?
The next meeting, I believe, starts at 6:30. I will double check
appreciate it.
myself, but yeah, I will get that out to you guys later tonight. So, all right, and that is it for the assembly and caucus update.
Are there any other questions for Chandra? Thank you. I don't see any. It is still on you because we have a technology update. We're in all the hats.
Yep.
Chandra with our technology update.
Okay, so our technology update. First question I have is, how many of you guys get your emails through your EPCO Dems email? Show of hands. Anyone getting their emails through? Oh, I've got a couple of people. Yay. Okay. All right. We are going to do an email training for everybody that is not getting their emails through the EPCO Dem email group. So we will be doing a training. I'm sorry, let me put that in chat. Here it is. It will be August 8th. And it is going to be in a webinar format, so we can test the webinar stuff to look at moving from Zoom to Teams webinar. So we will be doing it in a webinar form. I know that that seems daunting. We will work on getting into the meeting. We will do a recorded version of how to get into the emails. Then we will break into smaller groups so that you can all actually get into your emails, because presenting it in a big group doesn't mean you can do it. So we will present it first, and then we will go into small groups so that everybody can have time to get into their emails. So if you are on the executive committee and you do not know you have an email, please click on that webinar link and sign up for the webinar so that we can get you hooked into your emails. That is the technology update that goes with the caucus and assembly update. Yes, Tracy.
Do you have a time for that on August 8th for the webinar?
Yes, I do. Give me a second. Let me just from 7 to 8:30.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I will get that link out to everybody, and I will get the sign up sheet out to everybody so that you guys can have access to that. For your knowledge, all chairs have an email. All secretaries and vice chairs have an account to view your team, but do not have an email. So I will teach you guys how to use the email. The meeting in September will be different. That will be teaching you about using Teams. So please make sure that you sign up for both and not just one. Okay, that's everything, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for that update. We are so close, y'all. Next up is Rob Rogers with a new website update. Oh, Tracy, do you have a question? Okay.
I'm getting there. Hold on just a minute. All right. There's my tabs. Okay, if you haven't noticed yet, we have made the transition from Wix and the old website over to it's a WordPress host that I transferred it over to and did some cleanup and modernization for it. Now this is up and live and active. As I had mentioned before, I mean, this was always going to be incremental. I wasn't going to be able to handle all of the different things and ideas. And Lynn Brown, I have to give her a shout out too, because she's already given me a lot of good ideas about adjustments and that kind of thing that can be made to it, but it is up and live. It is it's all been designed from the ground up to be mobile friendly and responsive. That was one of the things in Wix, and Amy Pascal probably knows this better than anybody. In Wix, you can't design one time and then have it look correctly like on a phone. You have to design, like 2 different times for like both environments, or there's chances of it not appearing right. So everything has been designed for mobile from the ground up. Just because it's something like, I don't know, 85-90% of global internet traffic is on a phone. So we went that direction. Feel free to go through and like play around with it. If you do have any ideas about things that you would like to see, then feel free to shoot me an email, and I will get that into the queue of things that I'm working on as I have time. But all the major pieces, we can take money in. There's links out to our ActBlue. We can have volunteers register that they are interested. It's linked out to forms that were already there. We can subscribe to the mailing list. All the major things that need to be done are there. Calendar is there and up and running in an easier to maintain way than it probably was before. So feel free to like play around and send me any other kind of ideas of things that you would like to see implemented within it that would be useful with an eye for almost like a marketing community outreach kind of like focus. So this is primarily the Democratic Party's presence for outreach and for the general community understanding like what we're all about and what it is that we're up to. Is there anything else you would like me to show specifically, Madam Chair?
I don't think so. Are there specific things that people on this call would like to see? I think B has her hand up. B, did you have a question?
Yes. There we go. Did you maintain a precinct organizer section, Rob?
The capability is there, and I have all of the old information that was on the previous site. As I was going through, there was so much stuff that it was just so out of date. I mean, I was finding things and references to precinct organizers and contact lists and that kind of stuff from 2018. Though because there was so much of it that was out of date, and we were running up on the renewal for continued subscriptions, I pulled all the information down, and the collective we are going to have to figure out what we want that precinct organizer area to be and make sure that it's updated. I mean, I was going through and pulling the information to either replicate it or transfer it over. And I mean, I was literally finding things that were still being presented publicly that hadn't been updated since 2018.
Would you like me to go through that and make some suggestions about what might be current or maybe revise some things?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll contact you and see how we can do that.
Okay. All of the capability is there, because that area in the old site was protected, and I've already implemented the ways of protecting that kind of information in an account-driven way. I also have implemented a way. It's essentially a single sign-on kind of capability where your authentication with your like Microsoft account and that kind of stuff would also authenticate you in this site too, to simplify things that way. So everything is there. All the infrastructure is there to do it. It's really just a matter of content.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll contact you, Rob.
Oh. Any other questions? Madam Chair, back to you.
Thank you. All right, y'all, we've made it. We are at the stay behind portion of our agenda. Do folks have things that they want to bring forth before we close out the meeting? I see Chauncey's hand first. I do not hear Chauncey's voice. Chauncey, was that an accident?
Sorry, I was waiting. I was waiting for someone to. Was waiting for you to say you may speak. My apologies.
You have the floor.
So proper. Usually don't speak. Just speaking to one thing right now. Currently, I have a petition going. Currently, if you guys do not know, our mayor decided to ask us to use $20 to $30 of our Tabor refund, which is ours, to give $5 million to a new police training center. How you feel about that, that's up to you. I'm just asking if you feel a certain way, please don't hesitate to look at that or sign that. They do go to a vote on that on Tuesday of next week. The only thing that's asked in that petition is that it could be going towards some other things. And we did have other people that are in the El Paso County Democratic Party that are here with us that did help me out, like shuffling this and proposing this. So if you guys are interested in that, please sign. If you guys need a link or anything, message me privately as well or anything like that, and I'll be able to share that to you. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else items for our stay behind agenda? I am not seeing any hands. Chandra, are you seeing hands?
I see none.
All right. Do I have a motion to close the meeting? I see John Gerald. Do I have a second?
I see Judy and Galindo for the second.
Perfect. Is there any conversation on the matter? Wonderful. For efficiency, I will ask for unanimous consent, barring any objections. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes and our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, y'all. We will see you in August. Thanks, y'all. Have a great night. If you are on team outreach, we'll see you in a second.